Hi, it's Warren Whitlock here with another episode of Emerging Technology. Podcast is designed to look at the future of what's coming out in technology, what the practical uses are, how it might benefit you, and help you learn about a lot of subjects that I spend more or less full time researching and keeping track of for these new companies that are all becoming very profitable, easier to set up or fast track. And today, I thought I'd get another practical. I did one, we just did an episode recently where I talked about what a company I was very familiar with. I said, that's a pretty good format. Full disclosure, I am involved with the company I'm talking about, and I'm doing this to inform you about emerging technology, and we don't have any offer today. We'll include a link in case you're interested, but that's it. That's the whole disclosure and ad and everything wrapped up in a couple of sentences. Now let's talk about hearing. You may notice that recently I've been wearing, instead of the headset I usually wear, I'm wearing these. This is an Apple AirPod. This particular one is the Apple AirPod Pro 2, and it was released a couple of months ago. And I heard they were going to put a hearing aid in it. And since I'm eligible to be needing hearing aids, and things have changed in the United States, that the hearing aids now are something that you can buy from a store, where we used to be thousands of dollars and seeing an audiologist. And products that I wound up using, testing, and actually I'm way overdue to do a review of an expensive product somebody gave me, and it turns out that after 3 sets it didn't work. So I've been very interested in this. And by the way, that's not the company I'm involved with. It's not Apple. I just want to preface by telling you about Apple. And what they've done is, in the latest upgrade for my, I think, $200, instead of headphones that have noise cancellation and all sorts of nifty things, you could, in one mode, you could turn your head and hear sound a little bit differently, as if it was actually coming from two speakers or two parts of a room. And there's another mode where when you have them on with the noise canceling, that if you start talking, it automatically turns off, or it lowers the volume on whatever you're listening to, and turns on the being able to hear a hearing aid. But most of all, there's a built-in hearing test that's just released 2 weeks ago. And so we're in late 2024. And the hearing test will measure your hearing. I've had a couple of before, and this is good. I have what we would call a mild hearing loss. In other words, I can hear everything, but above a certain frequency, when they're talking, sounds like they're mumbling. And so I've long since given up worrying about whether or not I'm a cyborg and turning this over to here. Or actually, I think that's probably a more positive thing. I used to think, oh no, hearing aid, will I have to grow my hair over my ears so nobody can tell I'm disabled? And it was my fault, because I used to wear these kind of headphones and listen to loud rock and roll music, and I'm paying for it today. By the way, kids, don't turn up the music. You'll pay for it someday. But this is an enhancement that's actually making my hearing better, not just so that I can hear the person that I'm talking to. And in this case, I'm actually recording the podcast using the microphones in these. Seems to be as good as the other microphones. I haven't upgraded my studio microphone in a while, because the other ones I use have worked so well. And that's the next upgrade I'm looking at doing. Be a not It will be attached to me, sitting in front of me when I talk. But until I get back to using one of those, you are hearing me on a set of Apple AirPod Pro 2. It's got to have Pro, and it's got to have the number 2 to be the ones we're talking about. I think they're the only ones that will actually accept the new software. Take the hearing test. It reconfigures the hearing aids for me and allows all the settings let's talk about. And most of the time, my hearing is better. And the one thing that I have most problems with, and now for at least a decade, watching TV, and the movie comes on the television, and it sounds like the roar of the fighting, the guns, the battles, the loud truck, whatever it is, outweighs the sound of speaking. And what outweighs both of those is the sound of the music swells, and I can't hear anything that's happening on the screen. And so we turn on the closed captions and watch that. I don't know about you, but almost everybody I talk to, regardless of age, has experienced, hey, this sound is bad. Let's put on the closed caption so we can read and make sure we get more of what they're saying. And that works. It does have problems though. Live, it's slow. And so you hear the actor say something, and then 10 seconds later, you read it on the screen. And you can't adjust that because they're typing it in as it happens. And it's been a real problem. My wife has no hearing loss. In fact, I think is oversensitive, at least compared to me. And we watch television together, and it's a nightmare. I'm sitting close to the TV with the sound up as loud as she will let me, and we're still using the closed caption. Why does this happen? And why is the old man talking so much about TV watching? Because it's a hearing problem that we all have some form of, because nobody has perfect hearing, especially if you need to fix what happened. When they make a movie, they can spend millions of dollars out of their budget making sure the sound is artistically wonderful. So when it's reproduced in a theater with all the surround sound speakers and technology they have, it can be more realistic watching the film. And they keep trying to do better and better at that because they're competing with us who have the ability to sit at home and dial up any show that we want, any movie that we want. And the problem is when they stick it over, whether it's broadcast television, stream Netflix and streaming service or whatever it is, by the time it gets to the receiver, it's going to be mush. The various networks that have all of these streaming services all have specs. They want to make sure, and you may have heard that sometimes the commercial sounds louder than in the show. That's one of those things. And but also we can see it today. The only place you see it today is on YouTube. You watch a video and then you watch the next video and the sound's different. You have to turn up the volume or turn down the volume to make it just what you want. And YouTube has something to try to levelize those, but it doesn't always work because of the so many sources there. But in commercial television, they know what specs they want, and they'll just take whatever the movie studio gives them or the TV producer gives them, and they will just go ahead and re-engineer it so that it fits well, and then they'll compress it. Compression means using less bits to represent the same thing. So you've seen this when you take a beautiful picture and then you put it into a Photoshop kind of a program and play with it. You save it again, and then you make it small, and then somebody else wants to blow it up. By the time they're looking at that, you just don't have the same picture. Modern cameras take just such rich, beautiful, in-depth representations of whatever you're looking at, but by the time they get processed, they're not always there. If you have a little tiny headshot on say a LinkedIn profile, and you decide to expand it to be you're going to print a sign or something, those are always a mess to deal with. And it's not because the resolution wasn't there, it's that it's been processed and then compressed. Compressed means it's going to be a smaller file. How that's done is more complicated in coding, but bottom line is it makes for a smaller file. And there's some others that take some of the information out. So you see the color. I'm wearing a solid color shirt, and it will come out as a less pixels needed to do that. So when you're listening to TV, now you got that problem. If you have a home theater and some good speakers, there is a signal in there called 5-to-1. It usually has something licensed from Dolby, and they've made a separate signal so you can listen to it on a good system. What my friends at Here Labs have done, an engineer who did this, he said one of the things he did was work on what would make commercials louder. He's done the evil too, but he also worked on the movies to make them better. A budget for a TV show can run into a couple $1 million. to make the series have the sound quality that they want. And then it gets mucked up by the network and then put through whatever speakers you get. What I'm talking about. When, when you go someplace and there's one tiny speaker and you got to listen to a person talk, and that's bad enough. But music is impossible because there's not enough range of frequency being supplied to that speaker to be able to make, or enough speakers to be able to process and make it sound good to you. So we turn on the captions and we read them. But with the new product coming out, it's going to be able to use AI to process that. We had quite a discussion at this. We were at dinner last night, and so I said I want to do a deep dive and tell me about your experience and what all goes into this. And so I've tried to sum up some of that, but then we got into the fun part. How does he know? How does the AI know what to put in there? All those specs I talked about along the way for encoding, decoding, and rearranging the bits that represent the sound. He knows what those specs are. He helped write some of them. He helped try to get around the bad ones, and apparently even had something to say about some of the thing. The biggest problem is the compression, which means that squiggly line that is the audio becomes a smaller squiggly line. So instead of fitting in this kind of a bandwidth, it now fits into this smaller kind of a bandwidth and cuts out the loudest sounds with the intention of not sending a loud sound through your speaker that's maybe going to hurt somebody's hearing. But the richness of being able to adjust it goes away. He knows how to dig out the right kind of things because of the specs on it. They have now figured out that they've got that down to where it's going to be a chip that gets processed. And remember Dolby, I think everybody's heard of Dolby. It's in all sorts of televisions, and anything playing good sound or anything has a Dolby. At one point it was a Dolby device, and then it became a Dolby chip, and now it's Adobe technology that has to be licensed and put into all those things. And I think the biggest actual cost of putting it in your television is the logo that says Dolby. And then, of course, all the licensing and the research they do to keep all that working come out of that. And so they've invented a standard like that and actually licensed the good 5-to-1 sound coming that's in the signal from Dolby, and then written software that will take advantage of what room you're in. If you're in a large room with an echo, it's going to sound different than if you're listening in a bedroom TV or even watching on a tablet. You get different sound out of different things and process it. I'm not really sure how the tablet and headphones work, but that's there because what he showed me yesterday is the prototype for something that looks just like my new hearing aid. He says, yes, Apple did a really good job on that, but there's some other things that we do because we are sound specialists, and the hearing aids we have will be a little bit different. The case where you put the AirPods will be, instead of being AirPods, it'll be other earbuds. And the charging case you can take out and set next to the person you're talking to, so you can have a one-on-one conversation and you can hear them well, and it can cut out the background better because the microphone's near the person. And we got talking about what that's going to lead to in the future. You're going to, when you have headphones on like these, you will be able to, maybe smaller, but they would go a lot better at going into the ear instead of having that tail hang out like AirPods do. But they will be able to use AI to process wherever you are and tune in. So if you're having a conversation with your spouse and you don't want to hear your kids, it will pick up on that. The part about the kids is a joke. You don't want to hear the noisy restaurant or wherever you are. Maybe you're at the playground. There you go. It's other people's kids. And or if you want to tune it so you do hear your family and your pet or whatever like that. And the AI is going to take care of this. So you don't have to give it a whole lot of thought and write instructions. It will adapt. So when you move from one room to another, it will adapt compared about the echo and the surroundings that are in the room, because they're going to read that, and you can read it for every kind of frequency. So the high notes and the low bass notes will all be processed so that you hear richly. And the thing that I've decided that I'm a cyborg, I want to explore the most of this. I want this thing to be able to do something that we technically can do. We haven't quite figured out how to put it in a consumer product. I want to be able to aim. I would like to, through whatever video device I've got and the sound or something, point, and then whatever I point at I get better sound, and it cuts out everything else. So whether or not that happens to be a conversation 50 feet away, it gets creepy. I tell you, with the iPhone, you can set your phone in another room and listen, and it feels creepy, and and it's like stuff you don't want to hear, noises from fans and things like that. You're like, nah, I don't want that. So it's a primitive one. Case things a little bit better, but the spy equipment is probably the silly use of it. There are some good ideas to do that, but I'm talking about the silly ones. What they will be able to do, though, is pick out what you need to listen to. So if you're watching television, it will know to zone in on the speakers and get rid of everything else. And if you're having an intimate conversation, say at a booth at a restaurant, you'll be able to talk to a person and not have to worry about hearing the conversation in the booth next door, whether or not somebody's rattling plates as they deliver food or a truck going by, can all be cut out. We will all have better hearing. I've watched this in the history of corrective lenses for eyes, and I have had contacts now for, uh, what is it, 48 years. And as a child, I wore glasses and thought I didn't ever want to bother with it. I don't want to stick something in my eye. And then I tried, and then soon they got better. And when they got to the ones you could wear all day and sleep in, the contacts that are in my eye right now have been in there for weeks without any work. By the way, another, don't do what I do. Do what I say you should do, which is, yeah, you do clean your contacts every day. Somehow my physiology got used to it, and I can go for a long time. I wake up in the morning and I can see, and it's good. But in the future, I'm expecting the contacts to be able to have some kind of a display, or work on something. I don't know about hooking up a battery to something that goes in my eye. It's still a little bit too far on the creepy scale for me, but I can envision that it could be there. It's a better world because I can have contacts that are on when I wake up in the morning. It's a hearing. The hearing comes off at night, but I can envision that being a simpler thing to use and be able to experience things. They say some of the cause of aging and death in elderly people is that they slow down and they're not able to hear. I know when my dad went to needing hearing aids all the time, he would more often than not, tell me that he wasn't wearing the hearing aids because they'd gotten wax in them. And not knowing anything at the time, I didn't know whether that's good, bad, or what crazy idea that was. It sounded like something that he needed every day should be not working, and they need to drive to the doctor to have them fixed. But that was what he was saying. I come to find out that he liked tuning out and not hearing anything, but his decline in his last few years was coincided a lot with that sort of thing. The life becomes seeing the doctors to stay healthy, making sure you don't fall over, because a fall can really, not interacting with people as much, having fewer friends. And in the end, you will to live, probably a little bit harsh to call it that, but the desire to be active and move ahead and learn new things goes away. I'm experiencing physically some of those because I'm getting up there in ways. I'm almost halfway through life. If I live to be 150, I need another several years before I get halfway, and at 75. And I think that we are going to use the technology to have better lives. One of the things is we'll be able to, whether or not we're wearing a visor or I like the hat with cameras and audio in it. You just put on the hat and it has the neural link inside it and everything. And instead of having something that talks to your phone or whatever, but you can actually take off the hat and you're no longer connected to the world. I like that concept. I've seen some good things. I've seen some glasses where they look like ordinary glasses, but they will have a display on them. and it would be just perfectly normal to have glasses. And of course, a camera involved so it can record everything that's happened. So you have instant recall of everything. The chemicals that make our brains go bad, Alzheimer's, can be cured. Heart disease is pretty well whipped. We have some few things. We still have heart disease as the leading cause of death, but it's happening later in the recovery. Now surgery where you would have been laid up for weeks is done in a day and you're back out if you're healthy and you take care of yourself. And my goal is take a little bit better care of myself. And I'll urge everybody of any age to keep doing that. But Alzheimer's, heart, the cancers, we can detect cancers down to a drop of blood. And it's just that there are a couple of hundred cancers that should be screened for, and they don't have one test for that. It's a matter of either combining some of these or using the AI to know which one to go after. But the promise of being able to take a drop of blood and find out what's going on with you, or better yet, something that looks through your skin at the blood vessels and takes readings and does something. I've seen work on these things, nothing like a successful lab experiment that you can expect to be on the market in a few years. None of that yet, but you can see it coming. We get rid of those things. The only thing to worry about is aging, and it's our body's breaking down. We can't take care of them. That's why I find hearing to be so important. Not only that I personally need it, if I was not going to be into the future and talking about this stuff and expected I was in the last years of my life, I put on a hearing aid and forget about it, go watch television. But I think that's probably it. If I wanted to be, yeah, if I just wanted to wait out life, and the nursing home doesn't look that bad, I just would rather do it at my house and just, watch TV, read, visit with some friends, see the family, of course, be with them as much as possible, and just wait for the end. That's not me. I have no intention of doing that. I intend to be making a video like this up until the day I die, or that may hasten whether or not people want me to keep going. But I intend to keep going, producing content, sharing what wisdom I'm able to get after 7 decades on Earth, and pass that on to help other people, and exploring as fast as I can. I'm running, trying to keep up with things right now, with new companies, new lab work, reading about these things every day, using my AI to help me keep track of all these things and condense it down to a few things that I can actually talk about, and get that to you as fast as possible. That's why I went for this format. There's no fancy directing, editing, me standing in different places, because you don't need that. You need the information. And so if you can hear this, great. If you watch this with the words on the screen in a short or a closed caption format, more power to you. We're rooting for you. If you want to use your ears, we can. And if you don't, it's okay too. I worked with a deaf school for many years. I was a vendor, and we went in there a few times and learned very quickly that curing deafness was not what they were about. They choose to live the best life they can, and that's okay too. But for me, I want whatever facilities I can to be enhanced again, so I can have supersonic hearing, and my eyesight will work on whether or not it's reading small text or seeing something a mile away. If we can put that in, it's great. And then seeing the rest of the world through an internet connection and all of the wonders that can be delivered to me. And that's my journey. That's emerging technology. I'm Warren Whitlock, and I'll see you again next time.